In a prior video, we focused on several listener questions that all pivoted around what is the transformative power of psychodynamic psychotherapy in relation to quality of life and relationships. Within that discussion, I focused on something commonly known in my field as the projective introjection malignant cycle, and we tapped into how to break that cycle. If you haven't had an opportunity, I would encourage you to go back and check out that video. In short, the cycle illustrates how past anger that has not yet been put to rest fuels interpersonal conflicts. When I closely explore these highly conflictual situations, such as, let's go back, can you tell me what was happening right before you quote unquote lashed out, or you got angry at him? Oftentimes what's discovered is that this is not about anger. In other words, this is not about lashing out. When things go accordingly, oftentimes what is discovered, and I quote, I lashed out because I didn't want to feel like an idiot. I didn't want to feel dumb. I didn't want to feel stupid and put down. This too then gets explored with a great deal of sensitivity, and oftentimes, again, what I hear is something like, growing up, my father always called me stupid. He said, you're worthless. You're an idiot. Once these new feelings emerge, we label them and we give them a name. The next step then is to give them a home. As these feelings are coming up, this is actually the moment where the most progress can be made. What does this mean? Give these feelings a home. And what does that actually look like? The goal now is to help somebody who's angry or who's lashing out begin to recognize that what they're doing is relating, again in my field, what we call an archaic fantasy object. That's what they're relating to instead of a contemporary loved one in their life. In other words, there's confusion between this archaic fantasy object who treated them in a very critical and cruel way and a loved one in their life who, yes, there is a reality here, may have something or may not be pleased with some behavior of yours or something you said or done, but that's very different than this whole thing coming alive in terms of what was said to you and that whole story that you heard growing up with an important caregiver in your life. In other words, what we begin to show them is that they start believing and become convinced that their loved one is treating them in the same exact way, that in this example, the same exact way that this father spoke to this child. And here it reminds me of an old saying, it's a tinderbox that just needs a spark to ignite. So one wrong glance, one slightly critical comment is enough to make this whole thing erupt and re-evoke, revivify this history. So, as you become more aware, and we have to go over this and over this many times, but as you become increasingly aware that you are relating to an archaic fantasy object instead of a loved one, what happens then is the people in your life become less dangerous. As they become less dangerous, there's less of a need to counterattack. And when you counterattack less, they do not respond with aggression. Instead, they respond with understanding, because now you have more of a capacity to talk through these things. In other words, in short, what I'm saying is you begin to see things more clearly. So the main point that I want to emphasize is the distinction between old fantasy, we call them archaic fantasy objects, and the real people in your life. This realization breaks the destructive cycle and sets the stage for improved relationships, which then lead to a better quality of life. However, transforming one's firmly held beliefs is no easy task. It takes time and motivation. Anyway, I know this stuff is complicated, so please Feel free to keep the questions coming. We have to hold off there for now, but until next time, bye for now.